Well, ain't it the $1,000,000 question? How do we find libraries for our music? Well, today I welcome back to the podcast one of our community mentors, Jeff LaPlante, and we're going to talk about how we can go about finding homes for our cues. We talk about pitching strategies, we talk about researching, we talk about the role that social media and virtual networking plays in relationship building. And then finally, how can services like Taxi fit into our broader strategy? All of that and more on episode 259 of the 52 Cues podcast. What is happening, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the 52 Cues podcast, where each week we talk all about the world of production and library music. My name is Dave Croft, and not only am I a composer, I am also a professor of music production, and it is so good to be here with you today. Whether you are watching on YouTube or listening to the audio on the go, just know that I appreciate you, just like I appreciate our family and friends subscribers who are composers just like you, looking to write better music, but also find success in the sync music industry. And 52 Cues is there to help with workshops, Zoom feedback sessions, weekly live streams, pitching to Real Music Library, an amazing global community, and a ton more. If you want to join us, head over to 52cues.com. It is free to join, and subscription tiers start at around $18 a month. So we would love to have you. Very thrilled to welcome back to the podcast one of our community mentors, Jeff LaPlante. Jeff, my friend, how are you doing today, man?
Doing really well. Thanks for having me on again. Really love these sessions.
Yeah, and I gotta say, buddy, that's a really sexy hoodie you're wearing there. Where in the world did you? This is so shameless. Where in the world did you get it?
Well, I saw one of the other community members have it on one of the feedback sessions, and it just caught my eye. I had to have it, so I ordered it, there you go.
Awesome. Yeah, it looks good on you, man. That green looks really good on you. I'm not sure I can pull off green, but you, my friend, are working. And if you want your own 52 Cues merch and swag, you can head over to 52Cues. We have a store with t-shirts and mugs and things like that. Anyway, so how's your week been, Jeff?
It's good. I've been relaxing a little bit more. I had a marathon of deliverables last week, so this is kind of like a recuperating week for me. I am still kind of busy doing some mixes for a couple more songs with Alora. I had some Latin house deliverables to do. Some of my revisions for one of the libraries that are very stingy about resonances.
Do I know this library?
Yes, of course you do.
Yes.
So those revisions finally got approved. So after this, I'll probably send those finals up. So yeah.
If it's the library that I'm thinking of, every time I submit something, I get mix notes, but I always learn something, and as soon as I get over myself, like, I've been at this 13 years, I've had hundreds of placements and blah, 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 blah. As soon as I get over that, then I'm like, man, he's right. And it's like an education. And this particular publisher gives really detailed notes, and he has, I think, some of the, if it's who I think it is, has some of the best ears in the business. Like,
so insane.
You need to, like take 2 dB at 6K right here in this instrument, and he's almost always right. And so
sometimes he'll even do a video for me. And you're absolutely right. You learn so much by working with this library, and it's made me such a better mixer. And I haven't been with them for too long, maybe a little bit less than a year, but I've gotten so much better since I started.
Yeah, and this publisher works really, really hard. Like, he is hustling for his composers. And I think this is a really good kind of segue into today's topic, which is the $1 million question, Jeff. Like, how do you find new libraries? I think once composers who come into the community, or folks that I work with, once they get their brain around like form and structure and wrangling the DAW and the production side of things, inevitably the next biggest question is, how do you find homes for your music? And one of the things, we talked about last time you were on, and one of the things I really appreciate and respect about you is your tenacity. I don't know if it's just like fearless abandon. I'm just gonna pitch, but you have a real kind of knack for finding libraries beyond just the cold emails and everything. And so I thought it would be a good idea to kind of pick your brain a little bit, and you can educate us all on your own strategies for finding libraries, because you are exceptionally good at it.
The first thing I would say is like, do your research, right? There's so many libraries out there. And if you go fire hose on all of them, you're going to end up pitching your music to libraries that don't even work with the style of music that you're writing. So you're pretty much wasting your time. What you have to do is do your due diligence and research what libraries would be right for the kind of cues that you're writing. And that takes time. And that takes a lot of time. You could go to their websites. You could find out so much just by listening to what they have already. And not only do you find what genres they are pitching, but you could also find out what genres maybe they don't have a lot of and they may need more of. So
yeah, if you can kind of fill a hole in their catalog, and then as long as it's kind of related, like if they don't do any trailer work, and it's all just like plucky dramedy or maybe happy clappy ukulele stuff, and you're sending them big dark horror trailers, that's not really going to be appropriate. Or, if you're submitting to a library that only focuses on like crime and tension music, like Crime Sonics comes to mind, which is owned and founded by a Full Sail graduate, Dan Brown Jr. And that whole library's raison d'etre is crime. Anything that has to do with like crime and tension. So don't send them like a ukulele track. They're probably not going to use it. And so doing your research, doing your diligence, and I know it sounds kind of obvious, but Google. And to a lesser degree, even ChatGPT, even though you have to be careful. It's been a while since I've searched GPT for production music libraries and their links, but last time I did, it fully hallucinated links. Like it would say, oh, here's this link, library, blah, blah, blah.com. And I would go to it and it would just be a dead link because, AI and LLMs, they ultimately want to please their human overlords. And so they'll just make things up. So you definitely have to check it out, but it is a good place to start to do your research. Another place of research is going to pmamusic.com. And if you go onto their resources page, there is a full member prefix database or catalog prefix database. And it has an exhaustive list of all of the libraries and the sub-publishers, everything from APM to Atomica to BMG to Megatrax to Pink Shark, Robotic Bear, Slipstream. It's an exhaustive list. And when I say exhaustive, I mean there are thousands of entries, which that's part of your job, is to find libraries that need the music that you have. Now, Jeff, do you have any experience with like Music Library Report? I know that's out there as well.
I've never paid for it, but I have. I mean, early in my sync career, I did, go on there a few times, and I'm sure it's helpful to get reviews from other composers, but I never I never got past the stuff that you could see for free. Do you use that a lot?
No, I got like a trial, like a 14-day trial, and I thought it was pretty good. And I know that Music Library Report's been around forever, like early kind of internet of things here in the production music world. Their forums can be okay. My experience is that maybe it wasn't the most up to date information. I think, but admittedly, it's been probably 6 or 7 years since I've last looked at it. I know that those are good people, and kind of like with Taxi, I think they're earnest business owners, and I don't know what the future of musiclibraryreport.com is, but if you don't have anywhere to start, it might not be a bad idea to just kind of do the trial and see if it's of value. I also know that Jesse Josephson at Sync My Music, he has a new kind of library placement like Sync Match or something. Any experience with that? I haven't really looked at that.
It's an app that you can get, and I think you could upload some music of your own, and it will tell you which libraries would be right for you, and it also tells you which libraries are getting the most placements in that genre. I didn't do it yet, but I think it's going really well. Jesse's not really coming on YouTube very much anymore, but I'm sure that's part of the reason he's busy with that.
And I've heard some good things about it. I haven't personally looked into it, and they have, it's a subscription tier, and Jesse is another person who I've talked about this on the podcast before. He's kind of the OG like YouTube sync guy, and so he's been around the industry quite a long time, and he's that's over at Sync My Music. Yeah, again, earnest people. I think he's an earnest guy. But if you've got experience with Sync Match or Music Library Report, let us know in the comments. Definitely want to check that out. But like you said, Jeff, it starts with doing the research, kind of finding libraries out there through Google, through Music Library Report, or whatever.
Some libraries have published interviews with the library owners on YouTube or on Google that you could find. And if you really resonate with somebody and want to work with them, yes, send them the email saying, listen, I really love what you're doing. I really enjoyed your presentation, and it seems like you're somebody that I really want to work with. You don't want to be sending an email saying, I really want to work with this library, if you don't really want to work with the library. You have to be sincere about it. If there's a reason why you're pitching to that library, it's going to shine through in what you say in your email. And if not, it's going to seem just like a form letter, and those typically get ignored.
Yeah, and let's take a moment to actually talk about just some basic pitching strategies. First of all, form email, just copy paste. That's like a full stop. Nothing says I am not interested in fomenting a relationship with you than copy pasta, right? So don't copy and paste. Write a new email from scratch. Sound like a human being. Using AI, I don't want to say a hard no on that. I mean, I use AI. I've got a ChatGPT subscription, and if you saw like last week's thumbnail, but you just have to use it as a tool to support your process, not to replace your process. So what I will do is I might take an email and put it into GPT, do a proofread pass, right? Do like a redundancy pass. Am I being too repetitive throughout here? Am I using the same word too many times? But I've also loaded in to GPT literally hours and hours of podcast transcripts, lecture transcripts, and making a custom GPT which kind of matches my voice, and not the recorded voice, but just my vocabulary, my speaking cadence, and that kind of thing. And so I've been working with it for, going on 2 years now, like training GPT to sound like me, so that when I put an email in that I wrote, that it will kind of smooth things out. And I think that's using it okay. But I did have a library explain it like this. If you are using AI and another person who's pitching is not using AI, the person who is not using AI will sound more authentic.
Yeah.
So it's up to you. It's like you can roll that dice if you want to do that.
I think it's important to sound like a genuine person and not a robot.
Yeah. because you have to think about the library. Put yourself in the shoes of a publisher getting hundreds of emails a day from composers who are, wanting to join their catalog, and you are going up against everybody else at the same time. Now, this, of course, is assuming that they even accept unsolicited submissions. And so, I mean, it goes without saying, right, Jeff? Like if they don't openly say on their website, send us music, either through a submission portal or it's just, are you a composer? Let us know. Do not cold email a library.
Absolutely. And it's such a big mistake that I think a lot of people make, but they don't realize that they get blacklisted pretty quickly when they do that. You have to follow directions. If you're a composer working with a library, you have to be precise about following directions, because you have to send proper deliverables with naming conventions and fill out the metadata according to their requirements. So if you can't even follow the simple direction of "we do not accept unsolicited material," you've
already
bad.
blown. Yeah, you've already blown the audition. The pitch starts the moment they open the email. And so if you find a library that does accept and they say, send us streaming links, and you send them WeTransfer links, done. You're done. You blew the pitch. If it says only send us three cues and you send them an album, you're done. The pitch starts the moment they open your email. And I'm not saying that like every library is like that, but any library who is getting a lot of work for their composers probably has a big roster, and they don't necessarily have time to kind of help you to learn how to do this.
Yeah, and that's the pitfall of the fire hose, right? Because if you're doing the same thing 100 times, you don't have the wherewithal to follow a specific set of directions. You're giving all of the libraries the same exact thing, so you're gonna miss some important directions.
Yeah, and like, God help you if it's the same, like this publisher that we were talking about earlier. He manages multiple catalogs and multiple labels that you wouldn't know that the same guy is overseeing and basically doing A&R for 4 different labels. And so if you are just copy pasta over and over, then he's going to be able to tell. He's going to be able to say, oh my gosh, this is the same guy not following directions and just sending me, a form letter. It's just no good, man. Because remember, when you are looking to get with a library, you are looking for a business partner ultimately, and publishers want partners they can trust, partners who are going to deliver, and partners who are going to follow directions and not add friction to their process.
Yeah.
And, we've been on our side of things here with the briefing room. We're wrangling a bunch of cues for the briefs that we've got going in, and it's a small stable of composers, very well-meaning composers. Nobody is nefarious, and nobody is going like, screw Dave and Shannon, I'm going to mess up my metadata. Nobody's saying that, I hope. But we still have issues like every single brief. And so, yeah, just be a human, be professional, follow directions. If they don't ask for pitches, don't send them. And if they do, then make sure you're giving them what they want.
And also make sure your email is professional. I think these libraries want to work with educated people who are going to have a certain level of professionalism. You have to know how to write a complete sentence. Make sure your grammar is on point. Make sure you're using capitalization, punctuation, all the things that I teach my second graders. These are important life skills that you need to have. These are real companies in the real world, and you have to have a certain degree of professionalism because it's a business.
You're right. It's a business, and it's real money, and a lot of times it's other people's money. So you have to be careful. Now, that having been said, this is an area where like LinkedIn, and we'll talk about social media here in just a second, but where LinkedIn connections or going to the PMA virtual hangout and even going to PMC, because if you can make a connection outside of just a cold email, then when you go to email, now it's more familiar. So you can say, "Hey, library, it was so great seeing you at PMC. Hope you had a good trip, and love that what we talked about." And so you can be a little bit more familial because you've done the early ice breaking already. And you've done it either in person, like going to a conference, one of the reasons conferences are so valuable, or you've done it virtually via a Zoom session over the meetup, the coffee hours, I think they call them, or you've made a connection via LinkedIn, which is where a ton of libraries and publishers are. So when you go to send the email, then it's not completely cold. It might be a cool lead, but it's not an ice cold lead. So do your research, find libraries that need what you want, can use what you want, and then follow the directions. Don't copy paste, and try to create connection points beyond the email if possible.
Yeah, and I think that's an important element of today's sync world. If you have an online presence that is recognizable, whether it's just a LinkedIn profile where you're posting about your current placements, whether you have your own YouTube channel, like showing off your composition skills or instrumentation skills, or even just an Instagram where you're posting about your composing life or your sync career. You can follow these companies. If they follow you back, fantastic. You could start liking their content because their libraries are posting a lot as well. So over time, month after month, if they see your name popping up as somebody who's liking their posts, when you send that email, they're going to recognize your name as somebody who has interacted with them before. So that has been a really, really good strategy for me the past year or so, just making sure that you're interacting with the libraries on social media, not messaging them right away, certainly not, but just liking their content. If you start liking their content enough, you might get them to follow you back. Then they're going to see your posts. Maybe, and this happened to me a couple of times, they comment on one of my posts. At that point, then that's your green light to send them a message. Something like, "Thank you so much for that comment. Thank you for your kind words. I am very familiar with your library. What is the best way to send you some music?" Something like that.
Yeah. Completely agree. I think LinkedIn is really slept on, man. I think because it's like, do we need another social media? No, not really. And Facebook is, I don't know. I go on Facebook maybe once a month, and I feel like it's circling the drain. And I know that like Instagram is doing better, especially if you are on the artist side of things. So if you are a vocalist or if you do a lot of vocal sync music, then Instagram, putting your stuff on Instagram, that's a real thing, because we have folks just like, we talked to Farnell a couple of months ago. I mean, he's on Instagram. He is actively looking for artist thinking folks who also understand sync licensing and, production music. But LinkedIn, don't sleep on it, folks. That there's a lot of business happening on LinkedIn, a lot of connection points. And I think the LinkedIn algorithm is really good at recommending folks. I don't know Jeff, if you've seen that, but like you'll make some connections with some publishers, and then it'll recommend a bunch of publishers, and then you'll see mutual connections. And so you can use those mutual connections when you reach out to create a new connection. Like, hey, publisher B, I see that we have a mutual connection here in Jeff LaPlante, and I would love the opportunity to connect here on LinkedIn and follow what you do. And then if they connect, then you can say, thank you so much, and then immediately start participating in their posts by liking, by commenting, and all of that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Actually, the library owner that we were talking about with the keen ear, he found me on LinkedIn. I have no idea how, but he must have, been looking at my content or recognize my name from my posts or even interviews that I've done on Taxi TV or with you. He reached out to me because he knew I had the style of music that he was looking for at that moment. So although I've made a lot of my connections through Taxi Forwards or 52Q's briefing room or even Sync Connect, Jesse's platform, some of the library owners have sought me out, which builds my confidence even more.
Yeah, that feels good, man. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and my first getting into this industry was by putting my stuff out on SoundCloud, and then a publisher and a composing, the head of a composing kind of group found my SoundCloud. Now they happened to also be teaching at Full Sail, but it wasn't me who I was just doing my thing, putting it out on SoundCloud, and we're off to the races. And SoundCloud is a social media platform. Ultimately, user-generated social media. And so, yeah, these types of tools can be really, really good. And it's an opportunity to create connection points that you can leverage into emails and pitches so that you are not pitching them totally ice cold. Anything you can do to kind of, I don't know, this feels really marketing. Anything you can do to kind of oil the gears of relationship, especially early, where the gears are moving very, very slowly, and you're having to kind of they're really big and they move slowly. Anything you can do to help that along, connecting on LinkedIn, going to these virtual meetups, putting your stuff out there so that you at least have a presence, then that goes a long way. That goes a really long way. Jeff, you mentioned Taxi. You have found a ton of success on Taxi. You've been on Taxi TV multiple times. You've been a featured composer of the month. So let's talk a little bit about Taxi. I've gotten library connections through Taxi. And how has your Taxi journey been?
For the past few years, it's been great. I actually started my Taxi journey way back in maybe 2007, where I was trying to pitch some of my songs for with my band at the time. And I went through many miserable failures with Taxi, if you will, because I wasn't doing it correctly. And I've been through, I've talked about this on Taxi TV and on 52Qs a couple times, but Taxi's not going to work for you if you don't do Taxi the correct way. And the way to do Taxi the correct way is to be an engaged member of their community. Watch the Taxi TVs that Michael does. Get educated.
Yeah, like every Monday, right?
Go on the forums and read all of the questions that people have asked throughout the years. Questions that going back to, maybe even the early 2000s or late 90s are still there. It is a treasure trove of information. Granted, the older information from way back then might not be relevant now, but you can find posts by some of the best composers there are. People that are making over $200,000 with their music right now. Though you could read posts from when they first started, and that's eye-opening.
Yeah, because they're asking a lot of the same questions like you're asking. Yeah. They're just future versions of you, and they're on the same journey. And I like what you said. You've got to approach Taxi in the way that Taxi needs you to. And so what you don't want to do is just write something and try to find a brief that kind of matches. I think you're wasting your money, not just in your subscription, but it costs $5 per, right? Mm-hmm. The way that I like to explain taxi to students is you can get an education in taxi, but using taxi to learn how to do this is kind of like learning how to barbecue by entering barbecue competitions. You will get an education, but you're going up against pit masters who have been at this a long time, which is one of the, I think it's one of the strengths of 52 Qs and what we are doing here, which we are not a sync placement machine, right? Institution. We are an educational institution that has placement opportunities for our members, but we are fundamentally all about teaching you how to do this. But taxi has that component, like they have feedback. You do get, a what is it called? It's not called a feedback form.
It's a critique.
You get,
I think it.
Yeah. You get a critique if you submit something, then they'll give you. But it's kind of a form, with like check boxes, and it's not really
listing deep. Results. I think probably they used to call it a critique because we could get like a full page, which was a bit much. I think they're doing it really well now. The most important thing is that you really study the reference tracks that they give you. Put yourself in the screener's position. If you forward a bunch of stuff that is not what the company asked for, you might not be a screener for too much longer. So if the library gives you a song that they want the composers to match, not steal, but match the vibe, the structure, the sounds, the only things that are going to get forwarded, no matter how good your songs are the things that match that reference, because that is what the library asked for. So I really think that's the key to taxi. You have to listen to the references.
Yeah, and they kind of live and die by the references, really, because that's all they have. Because taxi is kind of in between the library and the composer, the screener can't think like fourth dimensionally. Like if you are pitching directly to a library, the library can say, this is good. I don't need it for this, but I might need it over here, which is great. But taxi screeners don't have that flexibility. And so that's a double-edged sword. On one hand, you get briefs, which are like laser focused, and that tells you exactly what to write. But if something isn't like bullseye onto the brief, then it's going to be a return, which can be super frustrating, right? And I have found as we are getting into this kind of like writing briefs and pitching to libraries and stuff in the community at 52 Qs, that I have, it's been kind of a challenge, man, to deprogram the brief blinders, because like working with our publisher for CBS Sports, a lot of times they're looking for like vibe, right? The briefs or the references we get are just, this is what's working, or here are a bunch of recording artists or rock songs from bands. And so your job isn't to clone or model those things. They're looking for somebody who can kind of listen to those and then move the ball down the field, to use a sports analogy. That's what a lot of libraries are looking for. And so if you are used to taxi, then when you start pitching to libraries, you might have to kind of break out of that a little bit, because not every library will send you briefs. And if they do, it might be so all over the place that you're like, how do I triangulate what you're actually looking for when what they're asking you to do is kind of interpret it, let those references kind of seep into the groundwater of your creative well so that you can create something unique out of that.
Yeah, taxi gets a lot of unwarranted hate for that reason, where a lot of good music does get returned because it doesn't fit the exact requirement that the library had asked for. And then when these composers find other avenues to pitch their music to a library, and the library ends up taking all 10 of a lot of the composer mindset would be like, oh, well, Taxi didn't take any of these, and then now this
Right.
library is
Yeah.
taking all of them. Why do I need
Yeah.
Taxi?
Taxi does. Yeah. Taxi. We don't need Taxi, or Taxi it doesn't work. And no, it works if you work their
If
system
you do it
and
correctly. As soon as you start
right.
matching the brief and doing it correctly, your forward rate goes up exponentially. And once I started doing that, all the doubts went away because I started getting forward, I started getting deals, I started getting checks in the mail, and I was like, okay, the money that I'm making with Taxi through all of the deals and placements now is more than I've paid Taxi through my submission fees and membership
Yeah.
fees
You've
throughout the year.
recouped your
I've
investment.
recouped everything. So right now Taxi is
Yeah.
still working for me. Taxi's
Yeah.
not the only one though. There's
Yeah.
Sync Connect through Jesse. There's Sync Titan
Mm-hmm.
that I've been seeing pop up on YouTube. You could find libraries through many different avenues nowadays.
Yeah. And just for the record, we are not sponsored by Taxi. I am not I'm not currently a Taxi subscriber, and this isn't a commercial for Taxi. We're just here saying that Taxi has worked for both of us. It's not the only way to connect and to connect with libraries, and it's not perfect. And honestly, it's not for everybody. But if you understand how to do Taxi and think about like the libraries who are connecting with Taxi and getting briefs through Taxi, they have a very, very narrow focus of what they want because that's what Taxi provides to them. Now, if you get a deal with the library, then it's kind of like, opening the doors to Jurassic Park, and on the other side, there's like, oh, look at all this room to play in. But you've got to kind of, get through the doorway first. And Taxi, I think, is a great way. I encourage students who are maybe not brand new to the industry, but ready to start actively pitching for Taxi to be one of, not the only, mind you, but one of their strategies.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be either or. I mean, a lot of composers do all these things because there's just more opportunities. I've signed so many deals through 52 Qs, through the briefing room, found one of my best performing libraries through 52 Qs, getting placements on the NFL every weekend. Taxi doesn't work with that particular library. So if I was just gung-ho on Taxi and say, no, none of the others, I'm a Taxi guy, I would have never had that opportunity.
And speaking of briefing room, there are a couple of ways here in the 52 Qs community that we look to connect our members with libraries. But I just want to say on the front end, that's not the ultimate goal of 52 Qs. The ultimate goal is to help you become a better composer and find success in the sync music industry. It's why I say it at the beginning of every episode. But through relationships that I have through libraries that I have worked with for years, or by recognizing that we have some amazing composers in the community who just need somewhere to kind of point their energies, we have two programs that are subscriber benefits. One is called the Sync Accelerator, and this is where every month we write a new album. And it's kind of part Composer Quest writing challenge, part kind of pitching to libraries. But the way it works is we put out a brief this month. As we are recording this, we are recording Halloween dramedy music. And so we're making as many albums as we can get of Halloween hijinks. And so folks will write all month long, and then they will submit, and we have a Q review derby, which is where we all get in the Zoom room. I listen to them, and I give feedback just like a publisher would. Thumbs up, thumbs down, maybe need some light revisions, and then we call for deliverables. And then when we get it in, then we pitch, and we use the tools from our partner RealCrafter. Love Sam and Sarah. Shout out to them over at RealCrafter. They have partnered with 52 Qs, and we pitch these albums to libraries. And I am thrilled to report that our very first set of albums, we had 32 cues of synthwave, like cinematic synthwave and synthwave underscore. They all got signed. They all got signed to the first library that we pitched to. And I was able to watch the Real Crafter stats come in and see all the analytics for who was watching what, or how long they listened to it. And this library, I knew we were in good shape when he listened to every single cue in their entirety throughout all 32. I pitched it, had a Zoom with him. He loves it, and he wants us to send him more down the line.
So good.
We've got an album of multiple albums of political underscore cues that we're going to be pitching. We're actively wrapping up a dark sci-fi tension brief. And so yeah, again, it's kind of equal parts writing challenge. We call those composer quests and pitching to library. So that's Sync Accelerator. The other program that we have is called the Briefing Room, and this is a subscriber benefit for our family members. And unlike Sync Accelerator, where we throw the brief out, we write, and then we pitch, for the Briefing Room, these are libraries that we work with directly, libraries who are coming to me, coming to us in the community. They have a real love for all the talent we have in the community, and whether it's sports or whether it's like Netflix dating shows or whatever, then they'll say, we need music for NCAA tournament. And so I will get the brief from the library, then we will put the brief out to the family folks, and then we have multiple rounds of submissions. And I think this is one of the things that really, really separates what we are doing and keeps 52 Cues solidly in the educational. Like we're much more like a teaching hospital or like culinary school. Like we're making real dishes here, but we are here to help each other. I'm here to help teach you how to do this, which means that sometimes you're going to get things wrong. That's okay.
Yeah, I think a lot of comments when I first joined Taxi, it was just that. If there was one thing wrong with my cue and you knew what had to be changed, why did it get returned? Why couldn't you just let me change it and resubmit? And I've heard that question thousands of times, in the past 10 years. That's kind of like what we do at 52 Cues, where we tell you what you need to change, you change it, and then you'll be able to resubmit to round 2, and then maybe there's something else that we notice. Maybe there'll be a high resonance that you need to bring down a little bit.
Yep.
And then at that point, when it's good to go, the library ends up getting a better product.
That's right. It's a win-win-win. Like it's good for the library because they get music that is curated, that is ready to go. We take care of deliverables and metadata and album artwork. It's good for the composer because the composer gets to learn how to improve their craft. They get opportunities, and they don't have to sweat pitching and all that stuff. And it helps like me and Shannon because we get a publishing share from the publisher themselves. They're cutting us into the publishing share, and so it's a win-win-win. It keeps me teaching, which is so central to who I am as a human. And again, it's not Taxi Light. It's not intending to be that. It is not what they're doing over at Sync Titan. It's not what they're doing over at Sync Connect. It is fundamentally learning how to do this, but pointing what you're learning at to real opportunities. Again, like culinary school. There's a restaurant at a culinary school where people are going to come eat the food you make. Hope you don't poison them, right? So those are some services. 52 Cues is right alongside some of these other services, and try it. Try something and see if it works. See if you resonate. Not everybody resonates with Taxi. Not everybody resonates with what Jesse's doing. Not everybody resonates with me. They hate the white glasses. And so they're like, I can't stand, they're not going to look at me, which is fine. But at the end of the day, using a service can help kind of jumpstart the connection points, because these services, if we're talking about oiling the gears of relationship, the services are standing in that gap, right? They're not a middleman. No, what they are is they already have the relationships, and the libraries are depending on these services to curate and cull, the submissions to save them time, to help them, and again, everybody wins.
Yeah, and one of the things that have really helped me develop connections with some libraries as of late is these communities all have events where they invite library owners in for interviews or question and answer sessions. I know Robbie Hancock's community on Facebook has something like that. Of course, 52 Qs. We just had Farnell. We've had Jason Rudd. We had so many people. Jesse, when he was doing the Sync Connect, I think it was once a month he would have a new library owner come on. And I would go to all of these things, and I developed a connection with the library owner by saying, "Hey, I saw your interview on Jesse's platform. Really loved what you had to say, and you definitely sound like a company that I'd love to have a chance to work for. How could I send you some music?" Just kind words about something they said, so it doesn't seem like a form email. Just pinpoint something. Oh, I noticed that you're a baseball fan. How do you feel about the Boston Red Sox?
Right.
It's more personal. You compliment them on how professional and knowledgeable they were during the interview. Just be a nice person, and they're just more likely to respond to a sincere, genuine comment as opposed to, I'm the best musician in the world. Check out my music.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. The last thing any of these libraries need is ego, especially in this industry, man. This is the I've said this before. Production music is like the coal mine of the music industry, right? We're just keeping our head down. We're chipping away at the rocks, and hopefully we find some usable things. My metaphor is breaking down. Anyway, another way that you can find new libraries is through collaboration. One of the libraries that I am with today started out as a collaboration through not Taxi, but through the Taxi forums. I was posting my cues up there. What do we think? Because on the Taxi forums they have a feedback thread, and I was posting my stuff out there, and I had a guitarist, a folk musician who played guitar and fiddle and on banjo and all that stuff. Is like, I have an opportunity to write kind of like epic Americana, and I like what you do, and should we collaborate? And so he gave me a bunch of folk stems, and I did everything else. He submitted it, and in the door at the library. Did a few of those, and then I reached out directly to the library. Like, really, really enjoyed working on these cues with Larry, and I would welcome any opportunity if you need other submissions. Here's what I do, and here's who I am. Would love to continue to work. Then I'm on their email blast. And so using collaborations to create connection points is, I think, that goes under the radar, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been able to bring in several of my, colleagues and friends into the libraries that I work for through co-writing. If I have somebody who does orchestral, that's a perfect blend with my rock stuff.
Yeah.
Now, all of a sudden, that orchestral composer is signed to the library, and before you know it, then he's submitting his own music to that library. So it's worked many, many times throughout my short career.
And I mean, ultimately, that's what the briefing room is. It is Dave surrounding himself with all of these collaborators, because how it started was the library I was working with specifically for CBS Sports. I just wasn't able to keep up with the demand. And so I'm like, well, I can't make more hours in the day, but I can make more Daves in the world. So I'm going to kind of start bringing them along and coaching them and helping them and mentoring them along the way. And then it was like, oh, we need more. And it started through collaboration. And so don't underestimate how valuable it can be, kind of hitching your wagon to somebody who is a future version of you, or is already, already where you want to be. Now, that having been said, don't, be cool about it, right? Don't be, if you are reaching out to a library that is from a connection that you made in collaboration, the right thing to do is to ask if you can from the collaborator. I think, Jeff, would you agree that that's like fair to do?
Absolutely.
Yeah, because what you don't want to do is start name dropping. Yeah, Jeff told me to give you a call, and they're like, we're not onboarding any new composers right now, and that feels weird. And then they email Jeff, like, Jeff, who is this guy? Why is he emailing me? And you're like, I didn't tell him to. And now suddenly you have done potential damage to the relationship that Jeff already had.
I think it usually works the other way around, where if I have a 10 cue album of orchestral rock stuff and we send it to the library, usually the library owner you've already signed this new person. Let's find out if they have any music that they can do on their own. So if the orchestral person would have taken it upon themselves to say, can I submit music? I'm not sure how that would go, but they're already signed to the library regardless. They've already signed the agreement, so they're part of the roster.
Well, yes. I mean, yes and no. Like some of the Sync Accelerator deals and that we're looking at with the libraries, because, they might not be ready to onboard like 35 new composers. Right. And so they might sign the album and they'll do the contract, but they're not necessarily prepared to add 35 new composers to the email blast. Right. So I think you're right. It's probably completely okay, but because you are potentially leveraging somebody else's relationship as a way to buoy the relationship that you want to have, then I think it's a good idea just to be cool. Just to be cool about it. Don't just name drop, just so everybody knows. And the nuclear option would be like, let's say, Jeff, me and you were working on a collab, and the library, doesn't necessarily have an open roster submissions. The nuclear option would be for you to introduce me separately on an email. You know what I mean? So, and just say, hey, library B, here, this is Dave. He's been working with me on these albums, and he's really, really great. And I just wanted you guys to meet each other, via email, just so you have contact information.
Yeah, I've done it that way too. Yep.
100%. But like the library that we work with for CBS, he does not take unsolicited submissions. Full stop. He doesn't. His whole kind of ethos is about mentoring, and actually it's very much like apprenticeship, right? And so you can't email him right now even if you wanted to. And so in order to kind of work into the library, he would put you with another composer. That's how I got into the library, because those folks heard my stuff on SoundCloud, brought me on board, and to this day, one of those composers is still my mentor. He teaches up in Berkeley, and every now and then I'll send him something or we'll talk. And by this point, I'm 13 years into this gig, and so it's much more like colleagues at this point. But I still consider him my mentor, and he brought me into the fold. And so now I've extended that into the greater 52 Qs community and the family.
That's fantastic. You share, I'm pretty sure you share the trait of getting more joy with your proteges wins than your own.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So if one of my collaborators, if we get a placement together, I am so excited to make that phone call or text message. When I get my own placement, I'm like, it's just another placement. But I just get so much joy from helping like somebody else who is, new to the industry find their first success, because I remember how good it felt when it first happened to me.
That's right. And that's because we're both teachers, man. Whether you're teaching second grade or you're teaching, 13th and 14th grade like I am, it's the same. That is teacher fuel, is seeing students succeed, especially like just earlier today, we were having a feedback session and we have a composer who has been wrangling like 808s. And it's been a long journey. We're talking about like a few months.
They're sounding good. They're sounding good now.
Sounds so good. And I know it's frustrating, and I know it has been frustrating for him along the lines to say like, okay, well, how does this sound? I'm like, oh, we're not quite there. Okay, how about this? Oh, not quite there. And then today, just before this session, heard one of his new hip hop tracks, and the 808s were fantastic. And I just, floated out of my body for a moment, and it's like, Dave, this is what it's all about, man. And celebrating his victory just in recognizing how far he has come and how much hard work this guy's done to get to where he is. And that's why we do it, man. It's why we do it 100%. At the end of the day, there is no like magic bullet. There is no secret. There's no hack. There's no just do this one thing and then all the libraries will line up. It is more often than not a multi-pronged approach that starts with doing your research, doing your due diligence, finding libraries who need what you have and have an ability to use what you have, but also creating relationships through social media, LinkedIn, through going to conferences, Zoom sessions, joining communities, whether it's Taxi or Sync My Music or Sync Titan or even 52 Qs, it's all about creating relationship and connection. And just because it's a publisher versus a co-writer, the DNA of relationship is still the same. So there's no magic one way to do it. And friends, anybody who tells you there is, just do this one thing and then you'll get placements, chances are they're selling something. Beware the person giving you a gold mine whose real business is selling shovels. Anything else you want to add? I think
No, just be a good person. It goes a long way. People really do notice the way you interact with others and the way you interact with them.
So don't be afraid to do some research, do your work, put yourself out there, take risks, whether it's over at Taxi or here in the community, or putting your stuff out on Instagram or Facebook or your YouTube channel. You don't have to be a YouTuber, but putting your stuff out there, that takes some courage, and I get it, especially if you're new to this, but you are growing through that process. And as you are growing, as you're getting better, then it's not unusual to get the attention of other folks whether they're collaborators or libraries. But what about you, listener or viewer? What have been your strategies to find new libraries? Have you had success through Taxi or Sync My Music? Or are there any other communities that you know about? I also want to mention Eric Copeland over at Make Music Income and Stephen Bedall at Production Music Academy. They're doing amazing things as well. I would be remiss if I did not mention those fine folks. But let us know in the comments below. We would love to hear from you. We do read all of those, and I make an effort to respond to everybody. But that's going to do it for us this week. As always, a massive word of thanks to our family and friends subscribers who pay their actual real-life money to keep all of this happening. And if you'd like to join us, again, you can head over to 52qs.com. It is free to join the community, but the subscription tiers, I believe, are very reasonably priced. And if we have priced it correctly, you will receive much more value than the money that goes out. Jeff, maybe this is totally biased of me to ask you, but do you think I would say that's a fair statement.
Absolutely agree.
So that is going to do it for us today. I hope that you are having an amazing year so far and appreciate you for joining us here for episode 259. We will be back next week with an all-new episode for Jeff LaPlante. I have been your host, Dave Croft. And remember, friends, that the universe always has amazing plans just for you. Until next time, peace. The 52 Cues podcast is copyright 2026 818 Studios, all rights reserved. The music played on the podcast is copyright of their respective owners and is used with permission and for educational purposes only. For more information, including joining the community or becoming a member subscriber, head over to 52cues.com.